A week ago, the sky was falling and the Giants couldn't score. 5 straight wins later, and everything has changed. But this is not a team without problems.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And coming up on today's show, the Giants rattled off 5 straight wins. They swept the Atlanta Braves. We'll get into the series sweep, the dramatics, all the one-run games. We'll also discuss the growing concern I have about Willy Adames, who just continues to struggle in a major way at the plate. And then also some issues I have with the lineup and a trade that got made. There's not an issue with the trade, but a trade got made. So anyway, jumping into the positive, the Giants swept the Atlanta Braves, which, we discussed, kicking them while they're down. The Braves came in off of a brutal loss and sweep at home against the Diamondbacks. They had a 10-4 lead in the ninth in that finale, and then lost, gave up 7 in the ninth. And then they fly all the way to San Francisco, and it was like, things could swing in a major way based on this series for the Braves. And the Braves doing poorly this season has a lot to do with the Giants having solid playoff odds at this point, because the Braves were expected to be one of those teams that, the Phillies, the Mets, the Braves, all were expected to be good teams, potentially all 90-plus win teams. And that would be 2 wildcard teams right there, potentially. And then you've got to worry about the other teams in the National League West, the Dodgers, the Padres, the Diamondbacks. So the Braves scuffling and now the Diamondbacks scuffling as well has really helped the Giants. So the Giants going head-to-head against Atlanta and kicking them down to 10 games under 500 and 10 games back of the Giants, who are 10 games over 500, just plays a major role in the fact that the Giants now, according to Fangraphs, have 61% playoff odds and the Braves down to 26%. So that was huge in and of itself. And the nature of the games, too. Every single game in this homestand the Giants just played, which was 7 games long, was decided by 1 run. And it's just the 4th homestand in MLB history of 7+ games in which every game was decided by 1 run. The Cubs in 1906, the Dodgers in 1986, so we went 80 years without that happening, the Twins in 2005, and now the Giants in 2025, 20 years later. So it doesn't happen very often at all. Fourth time, in Major League history to see that. And so it went, they finished off their trip in Miami, and then they came home. They lost. This is what I was saying, how a week ago the sky was falling and they couldn't score, and that was the whole narrative. And they lost 1-0 a week ago today to the Padres at home to open up the homestand. They stranded the bases loaded. They had a runner on second, nobody out. They had their extra inning, free runner. They hit some balls hard, and they just were caught in that extra inning frame. They lose 1-0. And then the next day they lose 3-2 they had a 2-run lead with 2 outs in the ninth, and they gave it up, Camilo Doval, and they end up losing in extras again, 3-2. So, but then they overcome a 5-0 deficit in the third game of the 4-game series, and that was the turning point. We discussed at the time, it was pretty obvious, like that could be a turning point for this team in the season. To the fact that they hadn't scored 5 runs in a game in like 15 games, longest stretch since 1965. But they came back and scored 6 after trailing 5-0 and won 6-5. And then the next day they win 3-2 and salvage a split in what started out as a disastrous looking homestand, and they haven't lost since. And so it ends up being a 5-2 homestand. They win 5-4 against the Braves they win on a walk-off wild pitch with 2 outs in the 10th on Friday. And then on Saturday, this was the game that really did it for me. I mean, it was the game, it obviously felt like it was about to be over in the loss department with the Giants down to their last out, 2-1. Runner on first, Elliot Ramos, who just continues to be a force at the plate. His breakout is very real. When I say breakout, I'm talking about last year. And when I say very real, I'm talking about how he's continued it this year. He singles. That was huge. They hadn't had a base runner in forever because the Braves starting pitcher, who went 8, had shut down or set down like 18 in a row or something like that. And then Elliot Ramos, who's now hitting 294, 360 on base, 484 slugging. Those are very, very good offensive numbers. He got that single, and then an out was made. Wilmer Flores popped out. But then Matt Chapman with his 12th home run of the year, a 1-1 pitch, sitting on a curveball, and he got one a little bit elevated and just hit a bomb to left. And a walk-off 2-run homer with 2 outs in the ninth was just incredible for this team to keep that momentum going. And then they go into the finale, and they win, obviously, another 1-run game there, the final score being 4-3. And Landon Root, they overcame another multiple run deficit in that game. They had like 3 hits in the game. Yeah, 3 hits, but 4 runs. Just goes to show you it's about what kind of hits you get and when you get them, not always about the number of hits. And so that stings big time for the Atlanta Braves. There's also a critical error by Ozzie Albies, but regardless, I mean, Landon Root didn't have his best stuff, but still went 6 in that game. And so the Giants pitching is carrying them. Logan Webb was great, gave up just a couple of runs in the second game of the series, went 6 innings, struck out 10, walked none, did give up a homer, which he very rarely does. The Giants allow fewer homers than any team in the major leagues. Part of that is due to their home ballpark, but still, their pitching has obviously been excellent all season long. The overall offensive numbers, I'm looking at them right now, it's not good. It's not good at all. And so that's when I say this is not a team without its flaws. They are 24th in team weighted runs created plus, which is an all-encompassing offensive metric. 100 is league average. They're at 92. And so they, like I said, they're not a perfect team. And one of the guys who really is a prime example of the issues right now with the Giants, because yes, they're playing well. Yes, they're 10 games over 500. Yes, their pitching is carrying the load in a big way. But a guy like Willy Adames, it's starting to be a real concern for me, just watching, not only looking at the numbers, but watching the at-bats is just not good. And so coming up in just a minute, despite all the positivity that is warranted after this, what turned out to be great 5-2 homestand, going into an off day, going into Denver, a bad team, I'm concerned about Willy Adames. So we'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, Today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. I absolutely love Wonderful Pistachios. My shelf is stocked to the max with these, with a variety of flavors, all of which are delicious, like smoky barbecue, chili roasted. They're absolutely delicious, and I highly encourage you to check them out for yourself. There's a flavor for everyone. There's no shell, there's with shell, everything you could possibly ask for. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, here we go. We are going to get into a negative amidst the positives. Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow, we're going to be doing a little round of mailbag questions. I think that it's an appropriate time. Last time we did them, the sky was falling and people wanted LaMonte Wade Jr. DFA'd. He was DFA'd, so now what's up now? I want to know what's on your mind as the Giants head to Colorado and are off today in Denver. So look out on Twitter for the prompt. I'll also put it on YouTube. So anyway, getting to the negatives with the Giants. Like I said, they're 24th out of 30 teams in weighted runs created plus. The Rockies, by the way, a distant last with a 66 team weighted runs created plus. It's crazy how they've put up like almost the fewest runs in baseball. Yeah, the fewest runs in baseball despite playing their home games at Coors Field. That's just how bad they've been. So the Rockies a distant last, but then the Rangers kind of surprisingly, Donnie Ecker and Justin Veely, and then Ecker was fired. And now it's Veely, so that's kind of, there's some people who probably feel vindicated by that in Giants land, fans, I mean. And then the Pirates, and then the White Sox, the Royals, the Brewers, and then the Giants. So you've got all these teams that aren't even good ahead of the Giants in terms of all-encompassing offense. And so when we look at it, we can see, obviously, there's some players who, you know, like LaMonte Wade Jr. was very bad. Luis Matos struggled when he was up here. But the guy who stands out simply because he is on a $182 million contract, and it's been 65 games played, 279 plate appearances. It's Willy Adames, who has a 68 weighted runs created plus, which, by the way, that was the same number as Sam Huff, who was designated for assignment. He's a backup catcher who put up the same overall weighted runs created plus as Adames and got DFA'd. And so that tells you a lot. Like, that is how severe the struggles have been for Willy Adames. It's a 193 average, a 281 on base, and a 303 slugging. The expected numbers are a little bit better, but the results like just have been atrocious, frankly. And so the person Willy Adames, I think, has been huge culturally for this team, and so he does add a lot in that way, but that doesn't, you don't pay $182 million for that over 7 years. And so he's only 29. He's going to turn 30 in early September. But it's just the at-bat quality is awful. And it's, I must say, sometimes one thing he's got going for him is that he has been pretty patient and not chasing, but when he does chase, it's ugly. And then a lot of times when pitches are in the zone, it's ugly. I saw him chase a fastball that was like almost in the dirt. You almost never see guys chase fastballs that are like that low. It wasn't a sinker, it was just a straight four-seamer that almost hit the dirt and he swung at it. And that just goes to show you how out of whack he is. So if we can look by pitch type, he's, according to StatCast, been unlucky when it comes to results on fastballs. He has a 336 expected weighted on base average versus having a 284 actual weighted on base average on fastballs. But on breaking balls, these are your curves and your sliders and your sweepers, the numbers are just bad. Whereas last year they were good with the Brewers, very good. And then on off speed, which is like change-up, splitters, the numbers are just horrendous. Whereas last year, that was his best pitch in terms of results. And so it's kind of hard to explain what exactly is going on. There are certain things we can look at. One of the things that jumps off the page is that his pull air percentage, so pulled balls in the air, the last like many years of his career, 2020, 2021, 2022, 3 and 4, he had among the highest rates in baseball of pulling balls in the air. Whereas this year, like let's say for example, last year he pulled about 25% of, I'm assuming this is all balls in play, were pulled in the air. 25%. The year before that, 24%. This year it's 15%. So he's not pulling the ball in the air. It's showing up very much in the power department. He has just a 111 isolated power, whereas last year it was 211. So he's lost 100 points on the isolated power. And one of the other things that jumps off the page is the swing speed. And that is, it just stands out a lot because this is something that they just kind of started measuring with StatCast, and his bat speed was 61st percentile in 2023, 77th percentile in 2024, and this year down to 48th percentile. So he's lost bat speed, which is, from my understanding, like a major contributor to success at the plate. Pat Burrell, Giants hitting coach, kind of wrote this off and said that when you're struggling as a hitter, you kind of shorten up your swing and don't try to do too much. And when you're feeling good, you really just let it go and swing harder. So maybe it's really hard to know if that's the case, if that's actually what's going on. But I want to say that the bat speed measurement, I have to double check on StatCast, like measures your top like 10% of speed of swings. So that actually would make Pat Burrell's theory not true. I'll have to double check that, but that means like when he swings his hardest, the hardest he swings, it's down significantly. I believe that's how they measure this. And his swing length, it's not like it's actually shorter. It's first percentile. So he has an extremely long swing and it's slowed down. And so when you have a long, slow swing, that's a recipe for failure. And his squared up rate, which is, I've always complained about the term barrel rate because in baseball vernacular, a barrel just kind of means squaring it up. But in StatCast terminology, a barrel is something very specific and different. It means, a certain type of contact, hard hit balls that are at an ideal range of launch angles. But squared up rate is about, hitting it on the sweet spot, not getting jammed, not hitting it off the end. And Adames has never been great at this. So he's not squaring the ball up. He has a long swing, and it's a swing that is slowed down a lot. And there's really nothing. His barrel his barrel percentage is still above average, but it's way down from where it was last year. And his max exit velocity is also way down from last year. It's still 60th percentile. And his hard hit rate is similar to last year. So I'm just like trying to look. The whiff rate is up a little bit. Chase rate is better. His speed is better. His outs above average was horrible, but is kind of improving. His arm strength, we can tell that's one of the things that's been really good for him. And yeah, bat speed. Yeah, here it is. Bat speed is measured at the sweet spot of the bat. Average bat speed is the average of the players, is the average of the top 90% of the players' swings. Top 90%. So it takes out your 10% of your slowest swings, I guess. You can interpret if I'm interpreting that right, but the top 90%. So it just takes out your slowest swings. So I don't know. I don't know if Pat Burrell's theory holds up or not, but what I do know is that this is looking not good. And he's had slumps before. He is a streaky hitter. Buster Posey's word was be patient, or his 2 words. We shall see if that comes to, if this turns into a disastrous contract or not, is essentially what I mean. We've played not quite, but getting close to half a season, and it's just 68 weighted runs created plus in 279 plate appearances. If we set the minimum to 250 plate appearances, where does that rank? Well, as we wait for Fangraphs to load, it ranks 3rd worst in all of baseball among players with 250 plate appearances or more. That's 89 players who have done that, and he is 3rd worst. So that's certainly not what you were hoping for in the first almost half of a season of your big free agent that you finally got. It is worth noting that some of the other players at the bottom here are like players who are considered good, like Michael Harris II, who we just saw from Atlanta, Salvador Perez, who's been a pretty good hitter in his career, Trevor Story, who also signed a big shortstop free agent contract, Christian Walker, who just signed a big contract, Marcus Semien, who's on a big contract. So these are all guys on the bottom 6, along with Willy Adames. So, yeah, I'm not saying there's no hope, but I am saying it's just been like there is definitely concern there. And a lot of it has to do, for me, with the swing length and the swing speed. It just doesn't look competitive a lot of the time, like almost all of the time. So we'll see. Maybe going to Denver after 2 straight off days for him clears his head and gets him swinging free and easy. And I wish him the best, obviously. But yeah, just wanted to touch on that topic because it's just been like a black hole in the lineup, which is not what you want out of your big free agent signing. So coming up in just a minute, 2 other things. Why is Daniel Johnson leading off? I'm going to air my grievances about that. And also, LaMonte Wade Jr. traded to a Los Angeles team. Which one? We'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize that you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merchandise, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. To me, the lowest price guarantee, and then also most importantly, the seat views that you can view in the app before you buy, so you'll know exactly where you'll be. Those are game changers, along with, of course, the price dropping as games get closer. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, here we go. We're going to get into my grievance. I'm going to air some grievances with the lineup, which I don't often do. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every dayers, tomorrow we'll be discussing or just getting to your mailbag questions. So look out on Twitter and YouTube for a prompt. So I have an issue here with the lineup construction, which I'm always telling people, like, don't worry so much about the lineup. But usually I say that in the context of me thinking the lineup is actually fine. And so I guess, like, I sympathize with those of you who felt like it was a real issue at times for whatever reason. Like, why is LaMonte Wade Jr. leading off? He's not fast. I'd be like, well, he's got a great on-base percentage. That's why. And that was previously, like last year and the year before. Obviously not this year. But Daniel Johnson leading off just strikes me as such a non-modern decision and a flawed decision, because that leadoff spot comes up the most out of any spot. Obviously, over the course of a season, that spot, I think it's like each spot in the lineup comes up like 16 more times than the next spot over the course of a season. So if you're hitting first versus ninth, you're talking like over 100 more plate appearances that you get. And so Daniel Johnson has done nothing to prove that he should be that guy for the Giants. I know he had 2 hits in his debut, but now he's batted 16 times, most of them out of the leadoff spot. He hit 7th, I think it was his first game, and then he's hit leadoff 3 times. And he's hitting 188 with a 188 on base and a 250 slugging and a 37.5% strikeout rate with a nearly 50% chase rate. So stop. Just stop. He should be hitting like 9th. I don't understand. I'd much rather have against a righty like Mike Yastrzemski, someone who has proven that they, even if you look at Yaz, like the bad numbers for Yastrzemski, it's all against left-handed pitching. Like every year of his career, he's never been even really close to below average against right-handed pitching. So if it's a righty on the mound, I don't care if he's in a little bit of a slump. I would still rather go with a guy who's proven himself at the major league level to hit first than a guy, no offense, but Daniel Johnson has played some big league games. I mean, he's got 40 big league games played, 111 plate appearances, just 16 with the Giants. And he's hit 198 with a 234 on base and a 321 slugging, 52% below average offensively. So I get it. They probably have their projection systems or whatever that maybe see him as significantly better than that, but he hasn't done it. And so to hit him leadoff, like I have an issue with it because I think the thinking is that he's fast, and this idea that you want just speed at the top of the lineup, it doesn't help you if they're not getting on base. Like the most important thing out of that leadoff spot, and it's kind of well established if you look around the game, look at the best teams in the game, like who hits leadoff for the Dodgers. It's Shohei Ohtani, and he has speed, but if that was all he had, he wouldn't be hitting leadoff, and he wouldn't be on a $700 million contract. And Ronald Acuna Jr., again, he doesn't have speed anymore, actually, because he's torn both ACLs in each knee. And on. Like, if you have a guy who's fast and gets on base a lot, great, hit him leadoff. But Daniel, just sticking a guy in there who has had no success at the major league level to be the guy who comes up the most in your lineup is so not in line with modern thinking about lineup construction, and it bugs me. So we'll see if he continues to hit leadoff despite not hitting well. I don't know. Maybe they really think he's going to hit well, but I think it mostly just has to do with speed, and I just don't think that that's a good way to construct your lineup. And finally, let's get into the fact that LaMonte Wade Jr. was traded to a Los Angeles team, but it wasn't the Dodgers. I did put on Twitter when they DFA'd him, I was like, oh no, he's going to sign with the Dodgers, isn't he? Because it was Farhan Zaidi who traded for LaMonte Wade Jr., understands the value of LaMonte Wade Jr., and Farhan Zaidi is now back working with the Dodgers. He's got the inside information on the Giants, something I think about a lot. But the Giants were able to trade LaMonte Wade Jr., so it was one of those situations where the Angels jumped the waiver wire. Nobody was going to claim him. Maybe he had already cleared waivers. No, if he clears waivers, then he can just elect free agency. So he couldn't have been traded. So he was traded before waivers were cleared. But the Giants sent... It's a pretty funny looking press release if you look at how they describe this trade. Giants roster moves for Sunday, June 8th. The San Francisco Giants have traded infielder LaMonte Wade Jr. and cash consideration to the Los Angeles, and that's when I was like, oh no. Angels, though, in exchange for a player to be named later or cash considerations. So they trade Wade and cash to the Angels for potentially cash. Make it make sense. It's confusing. And these whole player to be named later things, there's reasons for it, and it's just going to be time until we find out. Do they even get a player? Who is the player? It's not going to be much, but it is worth noting the Giants paid down some of the salary, hopefully to get a player they like, and Wade has some value because a team like the Angels, it makes sense for a team like the Angels to get him, although he is a free agent at the end of the year. And so I don't know, though. The Angels are playing decently, and so to take a flyer on him, I guess now they're only 4.5 back in the wild card, 4 games under 500. And hopefully for Wade, staying in California, I know he's not from here, but he has played here for a long time. So I don't know. Hopefully Wade considers this a good landing spot for him. Hopefully he gets a good opportunity there with the Angels. And have the Giants played the Angels yet? I don't know, but we're about to see Thairo Estrada in Colorado. He's been activated off the injured list, and so Estrada in Colorado, Wade in LA with the Angels, thankfully. I as soon as I read that email, I was like, no, they did not trade Wade to the Dodgers, but it was the Angels, so thank goodness for that. Hopefully, when they play the Dodgers, actually I think they've already played the Dodgers because they had that rivalry weekend or whatever, that he would do damage, but I think it's past. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name's Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening today. You are now Locked On Giants.